Whatever happened to predictability? The milkman, the paperboy, and evening TV. Oh, hello, I didn't see you there. Welcome to another episode of Is It Really That Good? An offshoot of Terrence and Roy at the Movies, and the show where we watch highly rated movies and tell you, were they really that good? This week we continue our inadvertent double feature from earlier in the week, and we watch another Ben Kingsley movie. This time, it's Schindler's List. Schindler's List happens to be the story of a German man in World War II whose unabashed love for capitalism proves to be a useful alternative to the actual horrors of dictatorship. At least until one day he wakes up and realizes, hey, I'm in World War II Germany, I should probably rediscover my capacity for compassion before it's too late. And this movie is very, very highly rated. It was nominated for like 7 Oscars. Is it really that good? Well, let's jump into it. The writing, I mean, they went about the writing in this movie a very specific way. It seemed like 70% of the time or more, they went, how do we make this particular scene very good? It doesn't have to be any, like, just any particular scene. They went scene by scene and they were like, how is this scene going to be good? Then the other 30 or so, they were like, well, how do all these scenes fit together? And there just wasn't enough. I don't know if I've never read the book, so I don't know if it's an adaptation problem or something, but it seemed like they focused far too much time on, like, how do we make each individual scene good, and not enough time on how do these scenes all fit together. You know? Because there's serious pacing issues with the movie, which is a problem to begin with. Though it's hard for there not to be serious pacing issues when you have a movie that's over 3 hours long. And speaking of a movie that's over 3 hours long, if you have a movie that's over 3 hours long, you want everything in the movie to conspire to make it not feel like it's that long. And the music in particular is the one part that I feel really doesn't help with that. I'm not saying the music's bad. I'm not saying the music is effective mostly scene by scene. There's some scenes where it's really effective. But overall, the pace the music has, and there's certain scenes where the music is kind of repetitive, like it's trying to sense this, it's trying to convey to you the sense of progression of time and events, but also like this intensity, this tenseness in the scenes. And it just doesn't work because it first of all, it gets kind of annoying in that regard to begin with, but also over the course of a 3-hour movie, you're like, I don't want the music to make me feel like this movie is longer right now. I got nothing super against having like a 3-hour and 15-minute movie in general, because I love long movies and I love sitting through movies and things like that, but actually from like a filmmaking perspective, if you're in the writer's room and you have the script and you're looking at the script and you're like, well, we finished the script, and they're like, how long do you think the script's going to be? And they're just like, well, it's going to be a 3-hour and 15-minute movie. You probably needed an editor, realistically. There aren't many, if any, movies that can justify being 3 hours and 15 minutes long. Any movies that got to that point were, broken up into 2-part specials or made into TV shows or things like that. I mean, it's 3 hours and 15 minutes. It's a lot, and it doesn't all need to be there. Certain parts of it, I know they were trying to be historically accurate and they were trying to make you feel uncomfortable with it being World War II and everything, but they just do it all over and over again, and they beat it into you so many times, and they're like, by the way, did you know that people died and it was terrible? And you're like, I mean, maybe people don't know, I don't know, but yes, we know World War II was awful. It's not comfortable, And it's one thing to be talking about it academically or to be talking about it, in some sort of social way, but for a film that is 3 hours and 15 minutes long, where you're in the medium of filmmaking, it's a little excessive to keep having these scenes that you're cutting back to that are just like, by the way, did you know everything was terrible? Yes, we know everything is terrible. It's not like the rest of the movie everything is not terrible just because you're not focusing on those scenes. We get the idea. And that's kind of the same problem with the main characters to a certain extent. You got Oscar Schindler, the main character, who's good and he eventually finds his compassion and helps people and everything. And then you have, Ray Fiennes playing the German commandant, who's, kind of like the antagonist, but it's hard to really call him that directly because at one point they're working together. But you have him, and just the whole time in the movie, they establish immediately from like pretty much as soon as they meet each other, they're just like, Schindler good, Ray finds character bad. And then like an hour and a half, 2 hours later, they're just like, do you get it? Do you understand? Schindler good, Ray finds character bad. And you're like, yes, I get it. I'm not an idiot. You know, I know you're trying to reinforce it, you're trying to make it dramatic, things like that, but this is like the 5th scene you've shown me that establishes that Schindler good and, Goth his character bad, it's just like, so that's awkward, but all of that being said, I can complain about those things. The music, by the way, John Williams' career is broken up in kind of these two eras, in my opinion. One is pre the movie Hook and post the movie Hook. And pre the movie Hook, he has all these, signatures and trademarks and everything. You got Superman and Indiana Jones and Star Wars. You got all these things you can kind of tell, like, similar. And then post that, you have all the iconic things he did, like, your Jurassic Parks and, your Harry Potters, things like that share similarities with each other. The music in this movie, even though it's John Williams, it's not recognizable as John Williams. Like, if you sat down and listened to it, you'd be like, I don't know if it's John Williams or not, really. It's weird, And he filmed this movie not long after Hook. And I think Hook really was that break where he was trying to figure out, like, where to evolve in his career. So maybe, and Hook seems like almost like a fully fleshed out version. It's surprisingly, where he kind of went. It sounds, you listen to some of Hook, it sounds like Harry Potter he did like 10, 20 years later. But this came out a couple of years after Hook, so I kind of wonder if maybe it was the subject material, or maybe it was a specific directive, or maybe John Williams was just in a part of his career where he was just like, I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing, to move forward. Then again, the subject material, probably a large part of it, because usually when he does music, it's pretty whimsical, it's pretty magical, and that's not World War II Germany. I don't know if you've heard, but so that's just kind of weird. It's kind of weird that you can't tell it's John Williams, really, if you don't already know. But again, it's not, bad of its own accord. It's weird. But then you got all that, and that's all fine. But then, we got to get right to the point. And the point is, it's an amazing story, with amazing acting, with amazing directing, with great editing. There's a reason it's rated so highly. There's a reason everybody loves it. And Liam Neeson is amazing, and Ray Fiennes is amazing, and they were both nominated for Oscars, I believe, and Ben Kingsley, again, is there, and man, if you needed any more evidence that Ben Kingsley was sleepwalking through Blood Rain for, a paycheck, or maybe he lost a bet or something, or one of those, it's like, Ben Kingsley is acting his butt off in this movie. And we know he could do it, we've seen him do it before. And in this movie, he's doing it. Like, I'm not gonna lie, when I first started watching the movie, I didn't recognize it was Ben Kingsley for a second. I was like, oh right, that's Ben Kingsley. And that's good acting. I don't know it was him, ultimately. So they're all great, and they the three of them, there's all kinds of side characters and things like that. There's a couple of kind of supporting characters who recur here or there, but for the most part, the three of them by far have the most screen time of any of the characters and are the most consistent. And so, Liam Neeson plays, Oscar Schindler in charge, and Ben Kingsley plays his accountant who's kind of helping him out, who goes through his own kind of personal journey where he's just like, Schindler seems like kind of just a capitalistic, opportunistic, he's not a great guy. But then he sees like actual Nazis doing actual Nazi things, and he's like, maybe Schindler's not that bad a guy by comparison. And then Schindler gets more and more with compassion, their relationship grows more and more, and that's good. And Ray Fiennes, his performance is great. Some of the writing for the character is a little weird, in my opinion, because I know they're trying to make him kind of like, not inhuman, but kind of this cold, unfeeling, kind of like person who's very, very cruel. But at certain points, it becomes almost cartoonish. Like, I feel like he should like have his own private island, like a mansion where he's like hunting people and like, and like he ends up in like an Indiana Jones movie or something like that, or like a Jumanji or a Doc Savage or any of those like culty, pulpish, like, and it's not the whole character, but there's very specific moments where he just kind of goes a little too far, not action-wise, but with just like his reactions, and I'm just like, but it seems like that was written into the scene, though. It doesn't seem like Ray Fiennes was overacting or anything. It just seems like they were like, this guy's ridiculous, and you're like, yeah, but he's a person. He's a terrible person. He is fundamentally like the antagonist, but in some sense, but he's still a person, you know. He's not a character from Jumanji, you know, or anything, probably. But so that's kind of weird. But Ben Kingsley's amazing, Ray Fiennes is amazing, Liam Neeson's amazing. The directing is great, you know, not questionable really. I mean, how many movies, even movies I don't like that Spielberg's done, how many movies can you watch by Spielberg and be like, well, the directing wasn't good? There aren't really that many where you could challenge Spielberg and be like, well, you didn't direct it as well as you could have, you know? And this movie, he directed the crap out of this movie too. This is great. And I've seen this movie before, but it's been several years since I've seen it all the way through. So it was kind of refreshing to watch it again and, you know, relearn everything about it, because it'd been some time since I'd seen it. But, so the acting is good, the directing is good, the editing is great, you know. It's like, it's exactly the opposite of, you know, all these other movies. These other movies where it's too slow or it's too fast or anything like that. It's like perfect, you know. And you cut here and you cut there, and everything is perfect, perfectly illustrates the scene's perfectly framed. It's all great for the most part, you know. I think there are a couple things they try to do a little too dramatically. Like, I'm going to compare this to The Godfather. I'm not going to review The Godfather right now. I'll get to The Godfather and the series eventually, and The Godfather 2. But The Godfather and The Godfather 2, there are certain scenes where they, like, a whole bunch of people die, maybe, and they're filming it really dramatically and really stylistically, and you're like, wow, that's incredible. And you're like, well, who were those people? Why did they die? And in The Godfather, you're like, well, they were all, like, characters that were, like, really main to the story, and, you know, it was very important that they died in that way at that time. And then this film kind of does that, where there's just, like, a whole bunch of stuff that's happening at the same time, and it's happening really stylistically and really dramatically, and then you're like, why is it happening? And you're like, I don't know why it's happening. Maybe it's to be realistic to the period or something, but it's not bad, it's just not directly supporting, in my opinion, the story they're telling in this movie. But other than that, I mean, it's just like, it's not like a real negative, it's just kind of superfluous. It adds to the, you know, 3 hour and 15-minute length of the movie, which is unfortunate, but because a lot of people don't have patience for that anymore, honestly. I know a lot of you out there don't have patience for a 3 hour. A lot of you out there don't have patience for a 2.5 hour movie, probably, you know, for the most part, unless it has superheroes in it. Because, you know, we want some Steve Rogers and some Tony Stark and some Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson should be in the Avengers, but I digress. Basically, it's just a very, very long movie with a lot of superfluous stuff that some of it's negative, some of it's not negative, some of it's just kind of there, but at its core, again, it's an amazing story, and by the end, if it's super, and I think a lot of people know this, but it's super emotional, and by the end, if you don't get emotional, you must be cold and dead inside. You don't have to cry, necessarily. Some people have cried, things like that, but you gotta feel something. This movie makes you feel things, and it's very important, and it's very effective at it. It's very good. And that's helped by, you know, the acting and the music at the end. A lot of people like the music at the end, it all comes around to support each other. That's arguably the strength of the movie. The strength of the movie is you've been watching this movie for like 2.5 hours or whatever, and then at the end you're just like, oh, all the flaws were just kind of in the middle where they were being gratuitous. They're not at the end, you know? It's not like a classic movie where they're just like, well, we did the first act and we managed the second act, and the third act we just kind of fell off. Not this movie at all. This movie is like, well, we bloated the second act, but the third act, pristine, practically. So, it's beautiful. So let's just get to the point. Is it that good? Is it really that good? Is it an 8.9? Is it a 96? Is it a 93? You know, I feel like I'm going to say this a lot, and this is going to be a disclaimer, but obviously it's open to interpretation. But, yeah, I mean, I think it is. I think ultimately it is that good. I think if you really wanted to be nitpicky, you really wanted to find flaws with it, you could say it's not that good. But I think ultimately it's about there. It's, you know, it's like a 8 point. I mean, the 96 seems like a little high to me. I know it's not the same sort of thing, the 93, but the 8.9 on IMDb, I feel pretty comfortable with that, you know, in that general range. So yeah, I think it is really about that good, ultimately. So that's kind of where I came down, you know. Leave a comment if you want, you know, tell me where you came down, really what you think, if you thought it was too long, did you not want to sit through it, things like that. But tell me what you think, and as per usual, you know, let me know if there's any movies you want me to do, either for Is It Really That Good or Is It Really That Bad? Any super highly rated movies or lowly rated movies, you know. Maybe you want to slant. Maybe there's a movie that everybody loves that's super highly rated that you hate, you know. So, if that's the case, let me know. Maybe I'll do it, you know. I know there are a couple of those in there for me, and people are going to be very disappointed when I tell them their favorite movies are not very good, but we'll get to that later. Until then, just leave a comment and let me know what you think, ultimately.